Good afternoon. My name is Amir Netz. I'm a technical fellow here at Microsoft. I'm also the CTO of Power BI, a product that we launched just 4 years ago, and we're going to share with you some information about some numbers about how well we're doing. It's been pretty much a rocket ship, and it's so exciting to be here to share with our developer community the kind of things that you can do with Power BI. So we're going to start with the basics, and the first thing is our vision. We believe in something called a data culture. A data culture is when every employee in a company has all the tools and all the data to make informed decision making. It's a world where information replaces opinions. It's a world where it's what you know rather than who you know that will determine your success in your career. And we built Power BI from the ground up to really fulfill the vision. We built it as a cloud service with incredibly low friction of deployment, very cost effective, and very easy to use. And we've been seeing an incredible success with the service. This is kind of the explosive growth that we have been witnessing with a product. And you can see here, this is the daily active users on the service. And you can see those deeps are the holidays. So you can see kind of people go on vacations. But it really is accelerating usage, exponential growth. People just love the product. If you just look an example at the mobile application that we have, you can see the reviews at 4.7 in the App Store and 4.6 in the Android store, and it's getting some massive use. If you're looking at the rest of the BI market versus Power BI, just the number of reviews that we're getting, about 50 times more than our closest competitors in this market. And you're here because you're developers, and we've been having this amazing, amazing developer community that has embraced Power BI, and we have over 3,000 developers, ISVs, that are using Power BI Embedded, which is the topic of discussion today, to build as part of ingredients in their applications. Not only the developer community, but overall the Power BI community is a thriving community with incredible number of participants, over 850,000 contributors in the community, that people who are answering questions on the forum, posting blogs, doing videos. The community is driving the development of the product. We have this ideas.powerbi.com where people raise their ideas for features, they vote on the features, and this is really what drives the development efforts of the product team, and the product team has been on a tier when it comes to just building the product. If you just take a look to understand what we mean, we've been releasing the product every month for the Power BI desktop, where you actually author the content, and every week for the Power BI service, and just the volume of features that we've been releasing. So this is, for example, the feature that we released in the first 5 months of last year. And this is the feature that we released in the next 5 months. And so constantly churning out features, and all driven by the feedback of the community. And one of the things that we really are proud of is how this short cycle that we have with the members of the community. Just a couple of weeks ago, one of the members posted on Twitter a request for a feature, and within 24 hours, we had about 100 responses, likes, and replies on that tweet. And a week later, we were able to announce that the feature has already been coded. And that is the kind of thing that we love to do with the community, is just listen, engage on Twitter, on Facebook, on the blogs, and just work with them on building the product. So with all of that, the product is young. It's having a lot of competition. This is a hot market. A very, very good competition, very mature one. And still, within 4.5 years, Microsoft took a complete leadership of the BI market. This is from Gartner, the Magic Quadrant. And I know it's hard to read, small fonts, but the dot there at the top right corner is Microsoft. And we are really, really proud to see how fast the product has progressed and how well the community has embraced it. So this is about Power BI overall. And then we are here to talk about Power BI Embedded. And Power BI Embedded is all about really taking the power of that product. And how many of you have used Power BI? Oh, quite a few, and not all. But so we'll go from the very, very basic, what is Power BI, and we'll start seeing what you can do with it and how you can build products with it. But you can take that power of interactive visualizations and data analysis and put it directly within your application. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to take a look at the demo application. later we'll see how we build such an application. So so let's move here to the demo machine, number 8, I was told. And what you see here on the screen is a demo, is a Contoso warehouse fulfillment application. And you can imagine that it has a lot of transactional utility. But what you see here is a real-time visualization of the robots moving in our warehouse. And we can actually, we can see here that some of the robots are marked as red. You can see here the visualization. The visualization is fully interactive. You can see here I can click and see the data change on the screen as a slice and dice. I can go even here, and as I click on one of those bars, I'm going to get additional visualization that allows me to also take some action, maybe look at take a dump of the robots that are misbehaving. I can have here another report in this application. All the reports of Power BI, if you haven't played with it, are by default fully interactive. So as we slice and dice, if I'm looking at a specific lot, I can slice and see how the composition of the lot in terms of the product that are there, or maybe I can click on one of the smartphones, which is one of the categories of products, and get the breakdown across lots and across time. And all this stuff. All of this beautiful visualization and the interaction and the ability to do sorting and ranking and a lot of other interactions are all built into Power BI. So how do you build these kind of applications? How do you get yourself into having these reports in? Well, there's actually a fairly simple process, and we're going to take you step by step through that process. And so just go in. One clicker, step by step. So the first thing that you do is you create content. And you create the content using the Power BI desktop. We're going to see how we use the Power BI desktop to create your first report. It's a codeless environment, drag and drop. It's pretty much like building a PowerPoint presentation, but it's fully interactive. And then once you have that content created, you provision yourself a Power BI embedded service. It's an Azure service. And then you use the service, you upload the content into the service, and then you use the service to display the content as embedded into your application. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take step by step. First, we'll see how we create a report if you haven't played with Power BI Desktop before. So we'll take about 6 minutes to do that. And then we'll see how we use the application, use the report inside the application. So back to number 8. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to be fairly adventurous. We are going to go and create a report from scratch. In this case, what I have here is a data set, and we're going to talk about data and how you get data and how you work with data in Power BI later on in the presentation. But this data set is a data set of hotel reviews. Imagine that you own a hotel chain in Hawaii, several hotels, and you have Yelp, where guests are posting reviews about the hotel, and you'd like to get some understanding of what's going on. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to just display tables of the reviews. So I'm going to take look at the review index, and then we're going to take a look at the comment that was made, and let's make it into a table. So kind of a small table starts showing up. Let's also add here the image let's just add it to the table. So click on the table, and let's add the image in here. And the image should show up here in the table. Yep, here it is. Very simple. Just click, create the table, decide which fields you want to go into the table. It immediately shows up. It says OK. One of the things that is very powerful about Power BI is that it has a whole community of visual creators that are sharing the visuals with the rest of the community. And we'll talk more about how you create those custom visuals, we call those, or community visuals. And I have one that is really just perfect for this, called the card browser. So I'm going to convert this table to a card browser. I can go here to the formatting pane and just going to format it. Let's go to the card, and we're going to change the card width to be 150, and the height is going to be 240, and just going to be a bit nicer, and move it a little bit to the side to make some room, and I can create another one. So this time I'm going to create me a nice bar chart, put it here, and I'm going to go and look at the sentiment of the review. We get the sentiment of the review from the cognitive services that are embedded into Power BI. Power BI offers a whole host of AI services just built in, including the ability to do sentiment analysis. So I can go here to the sentiment score and break it down by my hotel. And I got myself a nice one. I'm going to copy Control-C. I want to Control-V and get myself another one here. And this one I'm going to change. And instead of looking at the hotel name, I'm going to break it down by the image tag. So again, another cognitive service built into AI is the ability to do image recognition. So we use that one to get some kind of image tag. And now we have here the image tags. And last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create here a word cloud with some of the key phrases that are in my reviews. So we're going to go here. Do I have here key phrases and I'm going to also use the key phrase as a count for the volume. So I'm going to say the count. And let's change the visualization. I don't want to rotate the text. And I think we're almost done. So we have ourselves our first report. Doesn't look great, but this is where we kind of the nice designers come here to make it a bit nicer. So one of the things we can do is to change the backdrop. So I can have an image. I already uploaded the image page background in here. It was transparent, so I'm going to untransparent it. It's kind of looking a bit nicer now. So this is almost in place. Let's move it a little bit. These are almost in place as well. This one is almost in place as well. And I'm going to also use the theme to make the fonts a bit better. So just like PowerPoint, we can actually switch themes. I'm going to import a theme of my own. That will change the fonts. Where is it? Not a good one. Miguel? Oh, one up? OK. All right. And desktop demo. OK, almost. Here we go. That's a theme. And now it's kind of, you'll see the fonts change a little bit, and the reports start to look pretty nice. And at this point, kind of the report is ready, and it's fully interactive. Maybe I can change here on the word cloud. I can change the font, the data color to be a bit more appropriate for this background, so make it white. And I can go and take a look here. For example, I can see that I have here my 5 hotels. I can say that I can see that they may, some of the hotels getting a low sentiment score. This one is 0.58. I can click on it. And I can see that perhaps it's because there is a lot of construction going on here in this hotel. So very easily I can see that. Or I can see that in terms of the sentiment, when people look at the images, the lowest sentiments are comments that have an image of an AC, an air conditioning unit. So if I click on AC, I can immediately get the photos of all the AC units, and I can see that it maybe has to do with construction again, and it's happening, and generally, if people comment, you go to Hawaii and you write a comment about the air conditioning, it's not going to be a good review. I can tell you that for sure based on this data. And this is just like that. We just built a beautiful report, and it takes us 5 minutes. And you can build this kind of report with the full interactivity of cross-highlighting. It's something that anybody can build, and you get these beautiful reports that we have here, and just flipping between them. All of them are fully interactive. As I click, they slice and dice. And in fact, this is going to be the report we're going to use for the rest of the demos. But that's kind of how you build. The next thing that you do, once you build it, is go and where's my clicker? Is go and provision yourself the Power BI service, and then you embed the report into your application. To show how it's done, I'm going to invite one of the members of our Power BI embedded team from ILDC, Ran. And thank you, Ran. And show us how you build your first Hello World with Power BI.
All right, so what I'm going to show today is the process where going from a PBIX file, which you built in desktop, to an actually running, working, embedded solution. And then we'll play around and add some features around. So this is our embed setup tool. You can use it to jumpstart your solution. I'm just going to go through some simple steps. I'm obviously going to sign in. Let's pick a new app name. Now, this wizard-like steps go through everything I need to do to provision a new app in AAD, create a new workspace in Power BI, Everything I can do in the service, everything I can do on my own. This is just a nice wizard I can do and use. I can upload the PBIX file, which I may have just shown. And this is just going to be imported right into my new workspace, which was created. And we'll soon see that I can just embed it inside my application. I need to grant permissions for the new application in AAD to interact with Power BI. This is just a basic step. And we're done. Okay, what I'm going to show now is within that, within this wizard, you get a sample application, which is available via GitHub, not just this wizard. I think I've just extracted it to a weird place, but let's see. I'm going to go now to Visual Studio and get this new solution that was downloaded from that wizard. And the first thing I'm going to see as soon as it loads up is the web config is already pre-populated with everything I've just configured in my wizard. If I'd go here and check all those IDs, the AAD application ID, the workspace I've created, the report ID, everything, I see it right here inside my configuration. Of course, I need to fill in one thing that the wizard doesn't know about me, which is the password. Of course, go ahead and share Power BI rocks as much as you want. And let's see what the application looks like, how easy it is to embed Power BI within code. So the first thing I'm going to show you is from the Power BI REST API and the C# wrappers that you get via NuGet packages. You just interact with Power BI as if it were basic C# code. Okay. First step would be.
Ron, can you make it a bit larger, the fonts?
Yeah, why not?
Mouse wheel. No. Okay, forget it.
Yeah, never mind.
There you
Why
go.
not?
That's it. There you go.
Is this okay?
Yeah.
All right, so within my application, the first thing I'm going to do is authenticate myself using the application that we've provisioned in AAD to communicate with the Power BI API. I get those through AAD, the NuGet itself. Once I have my username and password, which we've just seen, I write credentials, authentication context, and the next step would be to use the SDK that Power BI Embedded gives you. You create this Power BI client, would go through everything in my workspace, the workspace we've just created. Of course, there's only one report, but you already know that. And I'm going to find the one report, which is with the report ID that was created, the one that we just uploaded. Once I have that, and I'm just going to skim through some of the code. You can go through it in Power BI, the samples themselves, but this is more for advanced user for LLS. But the main thing here is this line over here, in which I generate an embed token over that report ID that we've just seen. And for that, these are the only three things that I need to know for my embedded solution, would be the report ID, the embed URL, and some token that Power BI generates for you to be able to embed that. Now, it's as easy as just running this solution that we've just downloaded. Let's build this. I think we're having some network issues. Yeah. Okay, so There seems to be a problem with the NuGet server that it's using. But the next step would be to see what I can do with Power BI Embedded. For that, I'd go to the playground, which is easy to remember, AKMS PBI JS. It rhymes, but it wasn't on purpose. Within the Power BI Embedded playground, I can see everything that I can do with Power BI Embedded, and I can see every capability that the Power BI Embedded product gives you, and it also, I can see every feature that exists here. So the playground gives me both the embedded report, a sample embedded report, similar to the one we tried to embed but had problem with the NuGet server. I'm sorry about that. But this is the report. I can see the code that it takes to run this application, and I can just basically copy it and use it within my application, so you can test it back and forth within your application. I can see what the logs is from the code that runs here. But the main thing here is there's a whole set of capabilities I can interact with the application and the Power BI Embedded report or dashboard or tile or Q&A experience. Just as easy as copying any of the code here, I can switch the page just by running report set page. And the embedded report just switches the page. I can set filters just by setting filters. Again, everything is documented, everything just works. And there's a whole bunch of solution of applications I can use with those capabilities. All I need to do is get this code, copy it, and paste it inside my JavaScript script that runs over my embedded solution. Okay, and that's
Thank you, Ran. So, play with the playground. It's tons of capabilities to customize, to create interactive experiences, to override the default of Power BI, to create your own custom menus. But one of the things that is really important, let me just go back to, I'm in the slide, so where's my clicker? One thing that is really important is working with data. As you've seen, the Power BI reports, as you work with them, they generate data. Queries are being generated. As I click on bars, other visuals are changing, so one operation will generate many queries. And it seems like those reports are sending the queries to the database that you're working with. But the fact is, it's not as simple as that. Power BI is actually sitting in the middle between your reports and the database. And the reports don't know anything about the physical structure of your database. They actually don't know which database technology it's running on. Is it running on Spark? Is it a SQL Server? Is it an Oracle? Is it Snowflake? The reports are authored exactly the same, regardless of what kind of backend you have in there. What you have in Power BI is a data model that allows you to go and create the set of tables and relationship and measures and also the business logic that allows the report to work against this abstraction layer. And the report is sending their queries to the abstraction layers, and the Power BI will generate the queries, translate the queries, and generate a native query language into the queries into the relational database or the operational database you have at the backend. Now, that will work pretty well if you have a very fast database that can really work and respond to maybe 10, 20 queries sent at once. Typically, those queries will be some kind of group by join queries, so large table scans. Some databases do it really well. If you have a data warehouse that is fully tuned, it's typically working pretty well. Other databases kind of are more designed for OLTP operations, not really big. They're not really designed for data warehousing functionality. And in this case, a lot of you will choose a different architecture. And that architecture will be to have Power BI cache the data that exists in the system, And instead of the Power BI sending queries to the OTP database, Power BI creates a cache, sucks the data from the database on a regular scheduled basis, and then it will work against the in-memory cache. So your database doesn't feel the load as users interact with those reports. And there's quite a lot of load out there. And that guarantees two things. First of all, your database is free from the extra burden of addressing the BI system. And the other thing is Power BI caches are incredibly, incredibly fast. They are in-memory column stores that are finely tuned for BI operations, are designed with the Power BI front end in mind. And that allows you to go and create those applications that are very, very fast, very interactive, but there's a cost. The cost is that there's some latency. The time when the data that you have in the cache is typically lagging the data that you have in the relational database. And then you can do also hybrid of the two. So to show how the whole thing comes together, I invited Christian Wade here to kind of show how you work with data in Power BI.
Thank you very much, Amir. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to show you just how easy and quick it is to create a Power BI dataset and optimize it for fast performance on large volumes of data. So I've just opened up Power BI Desktop. This is the startup page. I'm going to click on Get Data, and I'm immediately presented with a range of data sources. There are so many in here. We practically release new data sources every month. I'm going to go with a good old SQL Server database. And I'll run through this wizard to select the tables from my SQL database. So we will go with reseller sales, and then I'm going to add the related tables based on the relationships in the source database. And I will also choose internet sales. So I've got these two transactional tables, reseller sales and internet sales. I click load, and that is it. It will generate a data set for me based on the schema of that SQL database. So in just a moment, we'll see the tables, the columns, and the relationships that it generated. And here we go. So there we are. So I'm going to switch to one I prepared a little bit earlier. So here I have those same two tables, internet sales and reseller sales, as you can just about see. All right. Now, when we click on objects here, we've got this properties pane. And if I click on a table, I get a different set of properties. And I'd like to call out here this particular property, storage mode. And as you can see, both of these transactional tables are set to direct query, which is what Amir was explaining. So I'm going to actually demonstrate how direct query works. So I'm going to switch over to this report. It's a very simple report. As Amir showed, it's super easy to create these reports. You simply just drag and drop and create visuals. And it's because of the relationships in the data set that it knows how to automatically group sales by product. All right? And I've actually got a SQL profiler trace running on that SQL database. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. As you can see, we have two queries that were submitted, right? One for each of the visuals. I've got reseller sales, and the other one is internet sales. So it dynamically generated and submitted these queries as I interacted with visuals on the report. In fact, as Amir also showed, we have this really nice cross-highlighting feature in Power BI where I can just click on any random part of the report, and it's intelligent enough to cross-filter the other visuals. So here we can see the red products. And if we look at the query that was generated for that, and we zoom in here, we can see that it generated a query filtered by the red products. Okay, so far so good, pretty straightforward. Now, as Amir said, what happens if we've got a really large database, potentially with millions of rows? Right? Imagine a database with like 100 million rows. That would be a lot, right? If it was running queries against a large database, they might take a while, right? So how do we optimize that? So I'm going to switch back to the dataset here. And I'm actually going to change the storage mode for this particular table to import. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to retrieve that data, it's going to compress it, it's going to load it into memory so that we have this blazing fast user experience over large data sets for users, right? So this was obviously a small database, but if I come back here and I show Profiler again, and let me reset it, and now if I refresh this, we can see that this time, instead of getting 2 queries, one for reseller sales and one for internet sales, we only got one for reseller sales because the internet sales visual hit the in-memory cache, which is blazing fast, okay? Pretty straightforward. We have this composite model. You can pick and choose which tables to cache to get a really good bang for your buck in terms of memory consumption versus blazing fast query performance. Now, this information that I just told you about empowers you to unlock massive data sets, like maybe 100 million rows or even 1 billion rows. Let's find out. I've actually got a data set right here. Who was here for Scott Guthrie's keynote this morning? Anyone? Okay, so you may have seen a demo there that was kind of, you may not have even noticed because the volume of it was so big. But this particular data set is data for a crowdsourced courier service where a smartphone app emits drivers' locations and generates a ton of data. All right, so if I click on this measure, you can just about see here, I can't zoom in right now, but it says it's just the count rows of the of the rows in this table, right? So let's casually drag this onto the canvas to see how many rows we have in here. We actually have over 1 trillion rows. This is actually 1/4 petabyte of data. You can see the number of digits here, right? This is the simple count rows of the table, and we have over 1 trillion rows, 1/4 petabyte coming from Azure Databricks source. And as you saw, I just got instant response times, effortless, so smooth. So let's go ahead and break out distance traveled. We'll break it out by date. We'll make it a bar chart, and we'll break it out by the miles per job. We'll make it nice and big. It's just effortless, so smooth. I'm going to go ahead and filter it by the drivers who left the company. Just clicky, clicky, draggy, droppy, instant response times over 1/4 petabyte of data coming from Databricks. How is this physically possible? Because we cache the data, right? But we do it at the aggregated level, right? We're not going to cache 1/4 petabyte into memory. We'd need a lot of memory. So we do it at the aggregated level, and we've been hitting the aggregated cache up until now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new visual. I'll make it a grid, and I'll break out the driver names. And if we find, in fact, I'm going to cross-filter this by December 23rd. So I've just created a list of drivers who worked on December 23rd, performed jobs of over 50 miles, subsequently left the company, over 1/4 petabyte of data. I've been hitting the in-memory cache, and I'm now going to drill through to the detail records, okay? So I'm going to go through, we're now going to see the actual movements for this particular driver on this particular date. At this point, there is no aggregated cache. So what's it doing? It will still provide a seamless user experience. So what it's going to do is it's going to run the direct query, but again, instead of against the local SQL database, it's actually running against a beast of a Azure Databricks cluster. As you can see, we've got about 15 nodes here. And if we look at the query that is actually running right now, and you can just about see here the username that we filtered on. Okay, so it seamlessly switched to direct query because it didn't have the cached data. Right, so if I just refresh this, this should be done. Okay. And then here we can see that Abigail drove all the way across Memphis just before the holidays. She then left the company. I like to think that she started her own company. She's doing very well. The point being, we unlocked 1/4 petabyte of data in a way that would otherwise be physically impossible. And I just empowered you on how to do this in 10 minutes. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So you see the power of the model in Power BI is pretty incredible because it allows you to both allow the Power BI to generate the queries automatically for you, to do all the calculation, define them once, and then the visuals just use the calculation. You don't have to have the calculation defined inside the queries. All you do is just use the calculation as building blocks that you put into the visuals. And then with the cached data sets, you can, when you input the data into the cache, you get this incredible performance, and then you can combine it with the direct query to handle the very, very large volumes of data, as Christian showed. So all of that is done with the data tier of Power BI. Now, so we've seen the demo. The other thing that is kind of really cool about Power BI is that we give it a lot of stuff in the product, but then you have a lot of opportunity to go and extend. And we have extensions in several tiers. For example, you can create connectors to special data sources with our connectors framework. You can create your own visualizations. In fact, let me show you here. Going back to the demo machine. You can create your own visualizations. We have a whole set of a whole set of visualizations that were created by the community. I mentioned the cards visual. Let me just show you how much we have here. We have here hundreds of those visuals that are created by the community. Virtually all of them are for free. In fact, those hundreds are just a drop in the bucket. We have many thousands that were created, but were not shared with the community. Were created by enterprises, organizations, corporations, companies that decided that they don't want to give it to the community. So we have thousands of those. What you see here is just the few that but the hundreds of those few that were shared with the community. There is a whole SDK that is available for you to build those visualizations. Just go back to my So you have here a whole SDK, a whole page that teaches you how to build your own custom visualization. You see a few examples here. And what's beautiful about, and you have SDK and samples and GitHub repositories that are all ready to use. And what's really cool about all these visualizations is that once you create those, they are fully, they're reacting the same way as a native visual inside Power BI. They enjoy the same kind of cross-highlighting interactivity, and all the formatting options are consistent. So it really feels like a native part of the product. One of the first custom visuals that we had in the product, at the very, very early days, is still one of my favorites. And this one, you can see here we have a set of stores that's selling fish. And you can see here the sales and the profitability of this visual of the stores of each one, and that's one way to look at it. But if we use the aquarium visual, you get a more industry-specific visual created here. And just to show, you have here the size of the fish represent how much sales you have. So big store, each fish is a store. The size of fish is how much fish the store sold. The speed is the profitability. And notice that some fish are floating upside down. These are the stores that are losing money. And notice that they're also swimming backwards, those dead fish. So that's kind of one of my favorite ones. But so you can go. It's fairly easy to create. As I said, thousands of those have been created. Hundreds of those are available in the GitHub for you to use. We have a lot of samples in the SDK. But there are other ways to create visuals, custom visuals inside Power BI. So I'm going to invite Justina Luchnik here on stage to show you how you can create those custom visuals, beautiful custom visuals, without a single line of code, or this without using Visual Studio. So
all right.
Take it away, Justina.
Thank you, Amir. And you guys, yes, please clap.
While we are connecting the lab.
Yeah, please clap a lot, because we only have, limited space, so we have a lot of demoers, so I'm going to have to change things around and get my laptop set up over here. So bear with me 1 second. All right, things are looking good. I'm just going to connect the internet as well over here. So Amir showed you how you can leverage the visualizations from inside the marketplace. You can build them using D3 and JavaScript, and build some amazing custom visualizations. But what I want to show you is how else you can extend Power BI. And the first thing I want to actually show you is how you can extend it if you're more kind of a citizen data scientist, analyst, leveraging data science tools. So what we have actually done inside Power BI, and I'm just going to enable my Zoom it over here, so bear with me 1 second, or not. All right, so it looks like I am not able to zoom. All right, so you guys, sorry about that. We're going to be looking at things very, very hard over here. But over here, if we look at our visualizations that we have available.
Close the start menu.
Yeah, it doesn't. OK, there we go. Sorry about that. We have R and Python visualizations that you can build directly inside Power BI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this Python visual. And you might have noticed, we have Hawaii tourism analysis. We have a lot of Hawaii kind of centered demos today. So what I really feel is in order to do these demos justice, I think I need to go to Hawaii and do some hands-on research to really, really do these demos well. So what I want to do is I want to actually use this Python visual to build a swarm plot to get some more insights about what the temperature is like in Hawaii. So I know when I need to be able to go, when is the good kind of weather for my holiday, my business trip. So I'm going to go over here. I've already got some Python code that's I've prepared. I'm going to copy this. But the first thing I need to do is actually bind this Python visualization to my data, like I would do with any other Power BI visual. So I've got my island temperature data that I've prepared over here. And what I'm going to need is my average temperature. I'm going to need my index field. I'm going to need my season, because I want to see how basically the temperatures vary across different seasons. And here is kind of a big difference between typical Power BI visuals and our Python visual. You will see over here we've actually got a Python script editor where, for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy my script in, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. And what this is going to do is it's going to leverage Python, and it's going to run this visualization. And I'm going to actually extend it a little bit and rerun it, so it's going to be bigger. But what's really cool about Power BI is we've actually embedded VS Code over here. So if I go ahead and start typing, you'll actually see IntelliSense popping up directly inside Power BI. If I want to use my own external IDE to leverage to do this, that's not a problem. I can select an external IDE over here. It's going to pop it up. I can work on my Python visualization, prototype it, and when I'm done, I can just go ahead and close this. So if we look at our visualization over here, I'm going to actually make this even bigger and rerun it again. We can start seeing, different patterns across this particular swarm plot.
Syntax error.
Oh, yeah. That's, I think, because I added some lines in and I didn't actually. Sorry about that. So there we go. So we can actually start seeing, how the temperature varies across seasons, so I can start getting a better idea of when I should be planning my trip.
And it's interactive, right? As you slice the data.
It's fully interactive, you're right. So maybe I don't want to go to Maui, maybe I want to go to Oahu. If I go ahead and select Oahu, we're making Python a first-class visual inside the Power BI canvas. So it's going to go ahead and actually recalculate my visualization and rerun the analysis in real time.
So 6 lines of code, and you have a brand new visual that.
Absolutely.
Really
but you might be thinking, yeah, Justina, but you still are writing code, You still had to write some Python code to do this. What if I want to create my own visualizations without writing a single line of code? That's not a problem. You can do that too. And so what I want to show you guys is a really, really cool tool that has actually been created by Microsoft Research, which is called the Charticulator. So you can go to this today, charticulator.com, and you can try building your own visualizations. So I'm going to launch this, and I'm going to try and do something really ambitious. I'm going to try and build a completely new custom visualization from scratch in the next 3 minutes. So the first thing I need to do over here is actually import some data so I can start prototyping my visual. So I'm going to select a month extract of data. And you can kind of see that appearing over here. And I really need the zoom in tool for this. So I'm going to try this again. Let's take a look. Yes, it worked. Great. OK, so we've got our data inside here. And this is basically the authoring canvas for my new custom visual. The thing that's really important that we're going to start with is this glyph. And you can think of the glyph as what does one data bar essentially look like. And then you're going to see how that gets repeated inside our chart. But the first thing I want to do over here is I want to actually plot my data axes inside here. And I'm going to bind it and anchor it to some of my data. So over here, what we're going to be basically plotting is like a radial chart. So instead of looking at temperatures by season, I want to take a different look at it. I want to look at temperature per month, kind of how it varies every day. So I'm going to start by plotting my average temperature, maximum temperature, minimum temperature. And you can think of this as kind of anchors for my data bars. And you'll see that in just a second. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in a marker. And that's going to be basically show me what my data bar is going to look like. So I'm going to do this very carefully. and I didn't quite get it over here. So there we go. So it's going basically from my maximum temperature to my minimum temperature. So here you can basically see what one data bar looks like. In the chart, it's showing you what the chart is going to look like. So if I want to make these bars longer, that doesn't look right. We can kind of make it smaller and make it kind of really, really specific and granular to what we want it to look like. Now, I want to add some color and change the shapes around a little bit. I don't want it to be a rectangle. You'll see why soon. I'm going to change it actually into a nice eclipse. And I'm also going to change the fill over here. I'm going to color it by average temperature, and I'm going to make it more of a spectrum of spectral colors. And I'm going to change the range a little bit. My temperatures don't start from 0, even though I do work in Celsius, but I've learned a good range would be about 55 to 90 over here. Awesome. OK, and that's going to update my colors over here. No, I didn't change this to 90. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to change the scaffolding of the visual. So I'm going to drop this radial polar effect, and that's going to go ahead and create this nice rounded circle. Well, and this is starting to look pretty cool, but I want to kind of change the circle around a little bit. I want to make this kind of more smaller. I'm going to make these lines bigger. And you'll notice how it's so easy for me to make this visualization look exactly how I want it to. So let's go ahead and make a few more changes. So I want to make the chart change a little bit in terms of the sizing. So I'm going to make the width a little bit smaller so it's more centered around this. And I'm going to change the margins so that the visual really kind of starts from the top all the way to the bottom. And the final thing I want to change is really just the title, because I don't want it to be called month extract. I want the title to be dynamic too. So I'm actually going to give it the month name over here, and I'm going to drop that in. I'm going to actually anchor this around kind of the middle. So I want it to be right in the middle of the circle. And I'm going to change maybe the font size to, well, I'm going to change the font type to be impact and make this a little bit bigger. And let's, as a final thing, change the color. And you could see I could spend a much, much longer than these 3 minutes in here. I could go ahead and tweak every little bit to make this chart look exactly how I wanted. But I think right now we have a pretty good prototype we can start with. So all I have to do now is basically go ahead and select this export button. You see we've got Power BI Custom Visual as one of our options over here. And I'm going to go ahead and deselect some of these options. And I'm going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this my weather chart over here. And I'm going to create a Power BI custom visual out of it. I'm going to save this over here. So let's figure out where it's saved. So it's in my downloads. And now I can just jump back into Power BI, go into my downloads. And just like Amir showed you, instead of importing from the marketplace, I'm going to import this custom visual from File. And let's go ahead and import my weather chart. It was imported successfully. And now I'm going to drop it into my report over here. And let's go ahead and bind it to the data. So the granularity here is the index. We've got our average temperature, maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and our month name. Not season, we want month name over here. And I'm going to select just January over here. And you can see that the visualization has rendered. Probably if I had more time, I'd tweak things around a little bit. But I've basically been able to create a custom visualization without writing any code that's fully interactive in Power BI. If I change this, let's say, from January to April, again, everything will recalculate, or titles are dynamic, and really just under 5 minutes, I think. So I highly encourage you guys to check it out. There's some really cool samples for the Charticulator to get you started. And I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Justina. Really amazing. So Justina will stay on stage because the next topic is around artificial intelligence. And Justina is one of our key members of the AI team for Power BI. I don't have many slides. I'm going to show this one here. Okay, actually.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Let's just
what's the
switch.
demo machine?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, no, that's not what I want.
Yeah, you were there. You were there. That was.
Oh, that was right? Oh, sorry.
That was the right one. Yes.
Sorry.
So those of you who.
There we go.
Yeah. Those of you who've been there to the keynote this morning, so Satya there, in the backdrop there was key influencers visual. And that's one of the AI capabilities we have inside Power BI. There's a huge effort to really build lots and lots and lots of AI functionality into the product. We talked about cognitive services. When you have Power BI, you have cognitive services built in. You don't need a separate Azure subscription. You don't have a separate meter. It's just built in. You get sentiment analysis, and you get key topic instructions, and you get
image detection, language
language detection, and you get the image recognition. You also get direct integration with your Azure ML algorithm that you built directly within Power BI. And then you have the ability to do AutoML, just built into Power BI. And then you have a bunch of other interactive capabilities that end users will enjoy. It's not about data preparation.
No.
They're about really creating those charts, those visuals, and those reports that really pops out and give you the next level of insights into your application. So let's take it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's switch back into the demo. And so what I want to focus on today is, as Amir mentioned, we could have spent really half an hour on all the different AI capabilities, going from data prep to building machine learning models. But what we really want to focus on today is how a business user can easily navigate their data, as well as easily get insights. And we're going to start with navigating data just using natural language. So again, as I promised, Hawaii tourism theme. The state of Hawaii publishes a bunch of statistics about people visiting the islands, and we started authoring a report over here. So as an analyst, they've gone ahead and authored this particular report, and a business user would be consuming it. But as a business user consuming it, maybe there are questions that I still have that weren't quite answered by this report. That's not a problem, because the analyst could have easily gone ahead and added a button to this particular report, and we're going to add this now, which is the Q&A button. I'm going to place it in this circle over here. And what this allows us to do is just ask Power BI natural language questions. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this experience. And as you can see, there are some questions on the side to get me started, if I want. But I can just go ahead and start typing.
They were generated automatically.
These were generated automatically. As you saw, I just added the button. So these were generated automatically by Power BI. But I can start asking my own questions if I'd like. So for example, I want to see visits maybe by date to the islands. And let's go ahead and also plot it by island. And so over here, very quickly, in just a couple of clicks, I was able to generate a chart that shows me how visits vary to the different islands. And this is kind of interesting, because you can see there's a lot of visits to Oahu. But if we look at over here, you might have not even noticed, there's kind of two lines that are very, very close, just to the axes over here. And they look like they're Molokai and Lanai. So any ideas, any thoughts why no one is visiting these islands? What do you guys think? Sorry? They're not inhabited? That's a good guess. What do you think, Amir? Any
Well, I actually opened Wikipedia. Molokai was well known for its leper colony, so it was inhabited.
Not anymore.
Lanai is where Bill Gates got married, and Larry Ellison bought the island later, probably to spite Bill. So, but that's really so it's very, very expensive. Actually, the cost of visiting Lanai is about 3 times more per day than any other island in Hawaii. That's why they don't see many visitors.
All right. Thank you very much for this very informative knowledge, Amir. So what I can do now, I meant it, I didn't mean to sound like sarcasm. So let's go ahead and actually add this question, because as you can see, there's some pretty cool insights from this. And so what you notice that alongside the other suggested questions, we actually now have a question from the report author. So I can go ahead and add some of these so my business user can interact with these. But we can go ahead and ask something else. So maybe instead of looking by visits by date, we can look at it by region. And I can even go ahead and ask a related question. So over here, we've gone ahead and looked at all the regions. But maybe my follow-up question is, well, what about just for people who are going to visit Hawaii for honeymoons? And as you can see, I've retained the context of my previous question over here. When we just looked at all the data, we can see that generally most visits are coming from US West. But if we looked at it just and filtered it down just to honeymoons, we can see that the data changes. And actually, US West is kind of more at the bottom. And most of our visits are actually coming from Japanese tourists. So that's kind of interesting, too. And we actually did some digging and research, and it turns out that 50% of honeymoons, Japanese honeymoons that happen outside of Japan, in fact, do take place in Hawaii. So interesting fun fact as well. Now, navigating away from the natural language, let's see how a business user can actually get insights from their data very easily. So you might have seen this at the Scott keynote as well. But over here, we've kind of flipped context. We're inside our guest analytics report. And so here, we're back to our hotel owner kind of scenario. So our hotel owner basically wants to understand what really drives their visitors to come back the following year. If we take a look at our data just for a second over here, we have our customer table. We can see, various demographic information about the customers, what they got up to during their hotel visit, and at the end we have this field whether the customer returned back, the following year or not. So here we go, customer not returning or returning. And we want to use this data to really understand what drives a customer to come back to my hotel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this new out-of-the-box AI visualization we've introduced to Power BI called the Key Influencers visual. I'm going to plot it inside my report over here. And I'm going to ask Power BI to basically analyze my customers column over here, which is where we basically have stored whether a customer returns or does not return. And we want to set up the question to ask what influences customers to be returning. And this visualization is special and a little bit different because what it's going to do is it's actually going to run statistical analysis behind the scenes to actually give me some insights. So all we have to do now is start dropping in factors we think could potentially have an impact. So let's go ahead and look at something like what was the primary interest when they visited us the first time. So you can see Power BI run some analysis. It actually run a classification model behind the scenes really quickly. And it told us that one of the top factors is when primary interest is relaxation. Guests are 1.5 times more likely to return than if they visited us for any other reason. To support this finding, we actually, on the right-hand side, give you a visualization. We run some DAX transformations on it to make it very easy for you to see this insight. But we do kind of all the heavy lifting to just focus, and you just need to focus on whether this is something that's insightful to you or not as the subject matter expert. Now, this is what it looks like with one field, but if I keep adding fields over here, like maybe whether they purchased a spa visit, what their reservation type was, which country are they visiting from, Power BI runs the analysis again on the fly, taking into consideration all the factors that have been dropped in. So now we can see primary interest is no longer the top factor. It's in fact, if you're visiting us from the UK, that's the people who really come back. And we can kind of see that on the visualization over here. But again, this is just another Power BI visual, right? So it's fully interactive. But interactions work here a little bit differently. Imagine I just want to look at my customers who are between the ages of 40 and 50. I'm going to select my customers over here, and we just rerun the analysis on that slice of data now. So for our 40 to 50-year-olds, it looks like actually purchasing a spa visit is the top factor, rather than being from the UK. So, again, really interesting. You can just filter your data and rerun the analysis without having to write any code. Now, this is still looking at one factor at a time, but what if I want to bring these factors together and look at multiple factors? Well, this is where our top segments come in. Here, we're actually running a decision tree behind the scenes and surfacing them out as segments. So segment 1 over here is telling us that 26% of customers return back the following year. And if we jump into this segment, we can actually see that this segment is made up of tourists from Japan who have purchased a spa visit in our hotel. And we can see that for this segment, as we've said, 26% of customers return. Only 11% of our customers return if we look at our general population. So this is a really, really substantial group for me to focus on. So maybe in my future marketing campaigns, this is a group I want to target. Or maybe I want to flip the question and understand who am I not doing well with and why. So here in just a couple of clicks, I was able to build an AI visualization out of the box that ranked everything, that responds to cross-filtering. And again, I would love for you guys to try it out and tell us what you think.
Thank you so much, Justina.
Thank you.
Pretty amazing.
5?
Yeah, 5, yeah. So we are kind of the end. You've seen what you can do with Power BI. And we know you have an option. You can build your own. You can use high charts. You can use D3.js. But you cannot get the level of functionality, interactivity, performance, and without even a single line of code that you can get with Power BI. You can provide an incredibly rich set of applications using Power BI to your users, give them not only the ability to go and interact with the data, but even the ability to author the report directly within your application. The editor itself that you've seen running on the desktop is also available for you running inside your application. So we're going to have a whole set of Power BI sessions in the conference, whether the introduction to Power BI, and actually a template. You can see here the whole set. We're looking forward. We have we want to see you part of our developer community, and we would like to have you join us on this amazing journey. Thank you very much.